This is Neil Patel. He's made over $100 million with SMMA. But what's even crazier is that he works with some of the biggest companies in the world like CNN, ESPN, and LinkedIn. I convinced Neil to reveal everything behind how he was able to scale his agency to over 9 figures so that you can learn exactly what he did and apply it right to your agency. In the next hour, he's going to break everything down from pricing, how to retain clients for years, and how to get them to pay you a lot more money. He talks about how he would start an SMMA in 2024. He had nothing, had to start all over from scratch, and how you can position yourself as the only agency solution to all of your clients' problems. That way, they stay with you forever and end up paying you all their marketing budget. This video is a true masterclass breaking down the psyche of one of the most genius agency owners in history. So sit back, take some notes, and let's dive in. So we are live with the man, the myth, the legend, Neil Patel. Neil, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So you probably don't know this because I haven't told you, but the first exposure that I ever got to digital marketing ever was on your blog. And this was over a decade ago. So first of all, thank you so much for all the content you've posted. I think you've inspired a lot of people to get started in digital marketing, and I've got you to thank for that. So the first question I actually wanted to ask you is, you've been around for a long time, and a lot of people come and go in this space. They have some hype built around them. They have a few good years, and then either they make some big mistakes that crush them, or they kind of disappear. How have you been able to create such longevity and scale, whereas a lot of the other big names, again, either fall off or make some bad moves?
A lot of them have fallen off not because they have done anything bad, and I know you're not implying that by any means. I know a lot of people have fallen off. They've fallen off because they don't care and they don't want to do it anymore.
What are your thoughts on bootstrapping versus raising capital? I know that there's kind of like two philosophies, but you could have a $1 billion company at the end and own pretty much none of it. And like,
you can also own a $10 billion company and own 5% of it, right? So I don't look at bootstrapping or venture funding, I think, the way most people look at it. Most people look at, oh, you should raise money and you can grow faster, or you should bootstrap, you keep more of the pie. I actually look at it from a business viewpoint. Some businesses require a lot of capital. Agencies aren't one of them. Some don't. If your business doesn't require a lot of capital, you should bootstrap or pretty much do friends and family and go from there. If your business requires a lot of capital, like creating something like an open AI, then by all means, go get money. Sam Altman wouldn't have been able to create open AI without all that cash. It just takes too much capital to do some certain projects. I think we're in a world where now your company either is a bootstrap company or needs a ton of money, not like $1 million or 5 million or 10 million. I'm talking about like hundreds of millions or billions. I think there's not much of the in between as much as there used to be because of things like cloud and AI. It's made a lot more things more affordable.
Have you raised capital for any of your businesses? I know you've done everything from info to SaaS to agency.
I have. I've raised money in the past a few times. Funny enough, the ones I've raised money on haven't done the best. The ones I bootstrapped did the best. There's no real reason for that. It's just luck of the draw. One of the ones I raised money for could have done really well. We just had bad luck and bad timing.
Interesting. Do you think that maybe it's because you have just less subconscious skin in the game?
Oh, the one where we raised money that should have done really well, it ended up being where Wired Magazine wrote an article saying that we were sharing data of our clients as an analytics company, and we were not. They did a retraction, but no one reads a retraction. And we had people like Meta and Microsoft that were circling and looking at the business at the time. And whether it was one of those two or someone else, I believe we could have sold the business. But once we had that post, and then we got a class action lawsuit from it, and we started fighting some of these things because we're just like, we're not sharing data. at the end of the day, a lot of companies don't want to deal with buying another corporation that's getting negative press. Just again, bad luck, bad timing.
What's a really hard or challenging thing you're facing right now in your business or in your life?
Growing in a crap economy, that's always tough. We're still growing, but it is tough. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna.
Haven't you guys beat your previous year's numbers every year for your agency?
Yes, we will beat our numbers this year over last year's. Even though it's a crap economy, we'll grow around 20%. But it's hard. It's really hard. If you look at how much investments we're making, our profit has gone down a lot. We've been reinvesting a ton of our capital to grow because when markets are bad, people pull back, and we're finding that's where the biggest opportunity is. But then it's harder to grow and you're losing more customers in a bad economy, yet we're doubling down on growth initiatives. And we're not going to see the results from that until the market really recovers. And who knows when that's going to be. It's tough, but look, you want to grow, you got to take risk, and you got to do the crap others aren't willing to do.
What's your philosophy on profit over reinvest, making sure that you take home a big chunk of the money versus reinvesting back into the business? I feel like when you're starting out, it's all like profit because it's very much like you just want to make money. And then at your level, right, you're probably thinking, how do I take this to a bigger and bigger and bigger level?
Well, people could think that when they're starting off too, right? It depends on the individual, but I look at it as there's no right formula. You should do whatever is best for you. If you want the profit and you want the lifestyle business, do it. You want to double down on growth and take over more market share, do it. And you can change your mind later on. You can have years where you want to double down and gain more market share, which is what we're doing in a bad economy. And then you can have years where you're just like, you know what? I just want to cash flow and buy a really nice house. There's nothing wrong with any of those approaches. You got to just figure out what's right for you in that moment and adjust.
So, back when I came across your blog many years ago, you were selling some courses, some info products, and I feel like your business model has evolved over time. Info, SaaS, now back to building a massive agency. What have been some of the thought process or some of the thoughts and kind of like critical thinking through those moments that led you to go to an agency, which most people think is hard to scale, way too much operational drag, so on and so forth?
But let me give you some context. I first started out in the agency world, then I went into software, and now I'm in agency/SaaS. Our company has both. So I do both. I don't necessarily do one or the other. I do both.
And what's your thought process there? Because I know, again,
we love technology. My background's technology, so we try to enable it as much as possible, and we enjoy building.
I've heard you talk about how there's kind of an obsession with like info products, but they have a natural cap at like $5 million a year. Can you talk about that?
They can get bigger. So the real order of operations was I created a website back in the day, learned marketing from it, started an agency, then got into SaaS, and then got into info when I was still in SaaS, but got into info at the same time. And realized it wouldn't scale for us. It's hard to scale for more than $5 million a year. Some have scaled to 100+ million a year, but they're hard businesses. They're hard to really scale up and up and up. And then we're just like, you know what? We're going to stick with SaaS because we were still in SaaS. We never left. Kept doing more SaaS and then transitioned from info to agency.
And why is that? Do you feel like there's agency in the long run is a better vehicle that is and do you believe that it's actually easier to scale?
Yes.
Why is that?
SaaS is easier to scale to a few $1,000,000 a year. SaaS is really hard to scale. I mean, not SaaS. Info is really easy to scale for a few $1,000,000 a year. Info is really hard to scale to 50, $100 million a year. When I look at all the info businesses like Agora that are 100+ million a year in revenue, they're massive operations. They're not running at like an info business that most of us would think.
And then why do you think that is? Is it the mechanics of the pricing? Is it the mechanics of like product market fit? Is it the mechanics of like just the market doesn't want that product as much? Like people want done for you services, what I've seen, way more than done with you, right? So
Correct.
why do you think that is? Like what's the deeper reasoning for why these models cap out from your perspective?
I don't know. The market's just not big enough. That's why I think a lot of them cap out. It goes back to TAM. The total addressable market is just not that big for people who want to buy an ebook on a best man's speech. Like
Yeah.
niches. The riches are not in the niches. The riches are in big, broad markets.
Mm. But unless you're dealing with Fortune 500 companies and Fortune 100 companies like you, which is technically a smaller TAM, but the LTV is insane, right?
No, the SMB TAM is massive. Look at like tools like Canva. Yeah, they may have Fortune 500 customers. I bet you they do, but they make their money from SMBs. Still a massive company, right? Whether it's a $20 billion market cap or a 40, whatever the last valuation was, it doesn't matter. It's massive. People have built big companies off SMB. Look at MailChimp. That was a prime example of a company that focused on SMB.
So is your agency mainly focused on SMB? I know you guys work with a wide range.
We work with all ranges, but our bread and butter is enterprise.
And I don't know if
And
you're
the
able to.
definition for enterprise is different for other people. For us, it's large corporations. For a holding company, it may be someone who spends $10+ million with them in fees, right? But for us, we try to work with enterprise or our version of it.
With those clients, I'm not sure if you're allowed to share, but what is a standard offering or pricing look like? Like let's say
There is no standard. Everything we do is custom. So we'll adjust it based on their needs and what they want.
so I come to you, I'm a Fortune 100 company. I say, hey, I want you to do my SEO. Is it like 100K a month? Is it like
Doesn't work like that. It works on what are your products? What are your divisions? How competitive is what it needs to be fixed? What can you do? What do you want us to do? How many resources do we need to put to fix this? And what results are you trying to achieve and how fast? And mapping out what's your average value, your average revenue per user. And the average revenue per user doesn't affect our pricing, but we just got to make sure we can make the campaign profitable, right? And people pretty much charge based on what it costs them. Most agencies operate at 10 to 20%, so it's just like you're charging not based on what you can charge. That's a bad model. You're charging based on what it'll take to produce the results.
What's an example? I don't know. Again, I'm not sure if you're allowed to share, but what's an example of a client that came to you? You don't have to share the name and like what you ended up offering, very like practically speaking, and how much you ended up charging. And the reason I'm just to give you some context, the reason I'm asking is because most of the agencies that I work with, they're charging very, very low amounts because it's mostly in the SMB market. But I also want to give people inspiration of what they could charge, if they ever got to a massive, massive level. Obviously, you guys are.
That's a wrong way to think about it, right? And here's why. Whether you're charging a little amount, it shouldn't be charging a client more money because you can. You should be charging them more because it takes more effort and it costs you more. Think of agencies like almost like lawyers. Even if it's project-based, you should be tracking how much time you're spending on these accounts. And if you're not making 20% margins, either you're doing something wrong or you're not charging enough. On the flip side, if you're making 40, 50% margins, you're probably not doing enough for the customer and you're going to get churned. And there's accounts that we've pitched or other people have pitched all the way from very low in certain regions like India or Malaysia, like in the thousands of dollars per month, all the way to, pitching people millions of dollars a year to run the campaigns. But it really comes down to what is someone looking to solve? One person could say, hey, I want to rank for X, Y, and Z within this local city. That could be easier and take way less effort than someone saying, hey, we got 10 products. They're in 13 different languages each. We need you to rank in these regions. We don't have the internal resources to implement the changes. You got to figure that out. And we want quarterly meetings in person in each region. And they may have all these lists of requirements. your cost for that kind of stuff is going to be much more, right? It's unethical to just charge people more because you can charge them more. It's like a lawyer, raping and pillaging someone and charging them $3,000 an hour when the work should have been done for $200 an hour. It's like you should charge people for what they're getting, and make it fair.
Interesting. So just mainly charge based on value and cost to deliver that value.
Bingo. And I more so look at cost than value. Value should be, I shouldn't take on the project if I can't give them value and a return. The cost should determine your pricing, but the value should determine if you even work with that customer.
That makes a lot of sense. Neil, do you have...
And I bet if with the list of agencies you work with, they may struggle to close business, but I bet you the bigger struggle is a lot of them churn a ton of accounts. And the reason being is the value's not always aligned. If the value's not aligned, you're going to churn.
Yeah, I think there's a mix, right? There's some people that struggle, and I think that it also depends on the market a lot, right? Like, for example, I've seen agencies working with realtors. They really struggle to retain because the sales cycle for a realtor is 6 months on average. So they have to pay for a long time without seeing any result. Whereas, when I had my agency, we worked with chiropractors and dentists, and we could get them an ROI month, within 30 days with like a simple reactivation campaign to their list.
Yes, and to also clarify even more, the issues that your agencies are facing, I've been through it myself. I'm not saying I'm better than them or anything like that. Most agency owners close the wrong accounts at the beginning just so they can get in revenue, and they end up churning a lot of accounts. You end up learning from your mistakes and you adjust from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you sharing some insight into the kinds of things people come to you for. Translating it to 13 different languages sounds like a lot of work. So with in-person meetings. Neil, just to pivot a little bit, what's your process to identify and capitalize on new trends and opportunities, or do you ignore shiny objects, quote unquote? What I've noticed is that sometimes it's good to, lift your head up and see what's out there, but then also you need to stay focused.
Sure. So we always pay attention to trends because there's a lot of things that could potentially affect the market, and you should pay attention to them, and you should always play around with them, but you should mainly have laser focus and focus on the core business and not get too distracted. It's like, have these things in your mind and pay attention to them. And if they're really going to become, the standard, you better adapt, but focus on your core business and don't get too distracted.
What is the biggest trend that you see right now that you guys are trying to capitalize on?
There's no specific trend that we're trying to capitalize on right now. We do see a lot of people leveraging AI, but we think in marketing, most people overestimate what it can do for them. They think it's a magic wand and they can just wave it and it solves all problems, and it doesn't. But they underestimate what it can do for them in the long run, in which we do think it'll be able to solve a lot more problems than they're even imagining. They just have to be patient and give it some time. But again, like the way we see all of this is, you got to just hunker down and focus on your core business. What is making you money? What do you need to do to get clients results now, within 3 months, within 12 months? What could potentially displace your clients? Not from them paying you. I'm talking about affect their business. How can you help them weather more storms and come out ahead?
If you had to start a marketing agency working with small business owners and you couldn't offer SEO, what would you offer them? And how would you, well, let's start with that one. What would you offer?
Sure. If I was starting a agency for SMBs, I would offer them SEO, even though you said I couldn't. And I would offer them paid advertising, and I'd offer them email marketing, and I'd offer them web design. SMBs are different than enterprise. They want full service. If you want to reduce churn with SMBs, you got to be full service and help them with all their marketing problems, not just one or two of them.
One of the things that I've shared with my audience is sometimes it's good to start out with one service and then add more. Would you, just because if you're an startup, maybe a team of 1 to 5 people, it's hard to do everything. Would you like hire contractors? Would you white label another agency and still go full service route and come up with an offer that does package all of those things?
You can do either one. You can partner with other agencies and offer their services or hire contractors. But I would recommend just starting off with 1 or 2 services and then expand as you've done really well with those and the clients are happy, and then offer more and more services over time.
And you think that reduces churn because they're just going to you for everything? You're now their growth partner.
I don't think it reduces churn. I know it reduces churn.
Fair enough.
I'm not arrogant. It just really does.
No, I trust you on that for sure.
Yeah.
How would you get your first client if you couldn't do SEO?
I wouldn't get, even if I could do SEO, I wouldn't get my first client from it. I would get my first client from like going to sites like Crunchbase, see who recently raised money, hit them up, break down everything that's wrong on their website and break down what I can do to fix it. And it's a numbers game. You'll get some contracts from it.
And if you were working with SMBs, would you do a similar thing where you're looking at their websites, seeing what's wrong with it, and just doing an audit?
Yes. I wouldn't send them an email, be like, hey, we help people rank #1 on Google. I would send them an email being like, hey, looked at your website. There's all these things that are wrong. Here's how you can fix it. Let us know if you need help. And oh, by the way, we did this for X, Y, and Z, and here were the results. And then if you don't have the X, Y, and Z example or case study, go try to help someone for free, get them results so you can use it as a case study and you can use them as a reference.
That's genius. So here's what's wrong with your website. We've been able to fix those things for X, Y, and Z. If you'd like, we can talk about fixing those things for you as well. Something like that. That'd be your angle.
Here are the results that they got.
Interesting. That's super interesting.
It's easier if you stick to a niche, dentist.
Oh yeah, that's the next question. Would you niche down or not?
I would at the beginning and then eventually expand to all main verticals.
Would you expand within like a slight, like in sequences? So you do, let's say, chiropractors, then medical, then home service.
Yes, you got it right. I wouldn't go from chiropractor to lawyers. I would go from chiropractors to all their medical stuff. And maybe it becomes chiropractors to dentists, then optometrists, then the rest of the medical.
For beginner agency owners, what would you say is like the #1 tactic? If you had to get super practical, something that someone watching this or listening to this could take and apply immediately, what would you recommend to do? And it could be anything.
For beginner agencies?
Yeah, you're starting out.
Crunchbase. Go hit up all the people who got recently funded. I'm telling you, there's like so much gold there and very few agencies are too lazy to do it.
Interesting. So just going to people with money that have budgets ready to apply.
They need growth. If you raise a lot of money, you need to spend it on marketing to grow faster. Those are your best customers if you're going after SMBs.
Interesting.
I'm talking about the ones that raise 50 or 100 million. I'm talking about the ones that raise like 2 million, 5 million, stuff like that, smaller amounts.
Yeah, and they don't have as much time. They need to. They have urgency.
Yep.
Well, what are some strategies that you would implement for an SMB agency to reduce churn, besides in addition to going full service?
Have good account management. Good account management and good reporting. Try to tie it into ROI. And full service, those things really do help reduce churn over time.
What do you look for in an account manager? What are some traits? Because I know some people like more like people, persons, people.
Technical, but really good at communication, really good with people.
It's a hard person to find.
It's a hard person to find.
Those tend to be contradicting skills. That's,
They don't have to be as technical, but if they have quite a few of those skills, you should make a good account manager.
How do you guys recruit for your agency?
That I don't know. I haven't done recruiting in a long time.
So that your CEO and your team members manage, I assume.
No, HR maybe? Does HR go under? Does HR deal with recruiting? I don't know which division recruiting falls under.
Dude, how do you get to that level? That's what I want to know. How do I get to that level where I don't even know what's happening in my business?
No, I know what's happening in the business, but I don't know where recruiting sits.
You know what I'm saying? I know I know. I didn't mean it to say it like that. You know what's happening in the business, but you're not involved in it.
Yeah. It just time. like you pick and choose your battles. I spend most of my time on clients, pitches, strategy, and M&A. So it's like I pick and choose. There's a certain point where you can't do everything. Like I don't know all the people that work for us or every single leader in every country. I've even talked to some of them. Like I know the name of the person who runs our Colombia office. I've never talked to him, and it's like you can't. Like this year we'll cross probably 1,000 employees. That's my guess. Um, it's too hard to know everyone and it just being perfect.
That's super fascinating. Obviously, it didn't start out that way, right? When you first started your companies.
Correct.
What changed for this company to have this much scale to put you in this position? Was it the vehicle? Was it your mindset in terms of how you approached it?
Bigger TAM. The
Ye-
agency world is a big TAM.
So, question, beginners, right? They need to start with it seems tighter TAM, less services, one niche, and then start to expand. Why not start with a big TAM? You're a beginner starting out. Why not? Or is it just way harder to fail or way more likely to fail?
No, it's not about if it's hard to scale or not. It's more so if you start off with the big TAM, it just takes a lot of time and money. Money solves a lot of problems. If you spend a lot of money, you don't need to start off with a niche.
Interesting.
We didn't start off with a niche. We started going after everything, but I also poured millions of dollars into the company.
If you had to start all over again from scratch and you don't have a lot of capital, what would you like looking back with your journey, with your blog, with the SaaS companies, now, info products, what would you have done? Would you have still, and I know the typical answer is like, I'm only here because I did those things. So that's what I would have done. But
No, I would have actually not done any of it. I wouldn't have started. I would have went 9 to 5.
what?
That's
That's not
what
what I was expecting.
I would have worked for someone else, like an agency in the enterprise industry, built relationships, gained a lot of knowledge, learned the ropes, and then went off on my own and started after I gained all the knowledge.
And you would have gone straight to agency.
I wouldn't have gone to agency, but I'm saying, I know your audience is agencies. That's what I would have done. I would have went to investment banking or private equity.
Interesting. Speaking of investment banking, private equity, you mentioned you're doing M&A. Are you doing programmatic M&A to grow the agency? Like, what are you guys acquiring? Are you acquiring other agencies?
Yeah, we acquire other agencies.
What do you look for? What is that process like?
They're in regions that we want to be in, and they have enterprise logos, and we believe that their customers are a good customer for us to have as well. And we look for a cultural fit and make sure their team can work well with ours.
So you're looking for team, roster, and location.
And low churn.
Low churn.
And
Interesting.
profitability.
Are you guys buying other things beyond agencies?
Software if we find it, but we mainly just buy agencies.
Interesting. So to recap, if you had to start all over again, you would have gone to 9 to 5, but you would have done it not in the agencies. Like if you had to really start over, you would have gone into private equity, investment banking, M&A, and learned that game.
Correct. And then I would have went into private equity, not for agency space. Keep in mind, my background is software, not agencies. Right? I would have still stayed in software. Most people, if they're in the agency world and that's what they love more than anything, I would tell them, go do agencies and go work for one. I know a lot of people that work for agencies that make like hundreds and thousands, $500,000, even $1 million a year working high up as an executive at some of these agencies. It pays well.
Yeah, I guess with private equity, you just have the biggest TAM, right?
Not necessarily. Like you have to raise a fund and it's a lot of work and you have to go and try to buy some of these companies and fix them and grow them. It's hard. Nothing is really easy, but I would have done that because I love it, but I'm doing my own version of it in the agency space. Like I love having an agency. I love having software companies and it works well together. So it's like, I just keep doing what I'm doing. I think too many people worry about things like if I had to start over again or how can I do it? everyone has to figure out their own journey. What worked for me won't work for most people. I had a brand going into this. I had money from previous ventures. People can't just copy what I was doing. And me telling someone how to run an SMB agency, I can tell you what works and what doesn't because I've seen tons of data and I've done it, but I'm not in their shoes with their capital. They could have more than me, less than me. They could be in a city that is smaller or bigger. They may have a brand, they may not. Like there's too many unknown variables. Everyone has to find the right approach. Also comes down to when do you start. If you started 20 years ago, it was way easier than if you're starting today. There's more competition, right?
Mm. Yeah, I think like I try to think in first principles. So like what are the core things that you look for? Like low churn, that's something that you've repeated over and over again. That could be applied pretty much to every business model. And try to take those golden nuggets. I know you said you're in other podcasts, like your investment strategy is mainly stocks, and then obviously M&A. I think you talked about buying a roofing company. I believe it was a roofing company.
Buddy of mine bought a roofing company. I've looked at them. I haven't touched any of them.
Okay, I thought maybe you were helping out or involved to
I was helping him out, but just
what
trying to. I focus on what I know and I don't touch what I don't know.
so right now, all of your cash, it just goes into stocks that are pretty safe.
Stocks or my own business.
Do you reinvest capital into the agency, or does it now kind of self fund?
It is self funds, but sometimes I do reinvest some of my own money back at the agency.
Super interesting. Okay, some rapid fire questions, kind of to end off. I guess most of them have been. You're very good at answering efficiently, so not going on these crazy tangents, which I appreciate. Well, what is the number one thing that takes someone from 7 to 8 figures, 8 to 9, and 9 to 10?
Time. It really is what, assuming you do really good work, it's time.
So it just goes back to takes 10 years to build a really good business.
Yes. Not what people want to hear, but it's the reality.
Oh yeah, I mean, I talk about like this principle of success takes time. You know, I started Google. I ran my first Google ad when I was 18. I didn't have my first 7-figure business until I was 26. And most people think like, oh, it took you 2 years of running that business, but really it took 8 years of learning marketing.
That's right. Takes a lot.
Yeah, and then it compounds. I think too. What are the 1 or 2 big mistakes that if you could go back and fix or make different choices, you would go back and course correct?
I wouldn't end up. I would have focused more. I did too many things, too many different businesses. I would have focused more. I would say that's probably the biggest thing.
On one thing?
One thing, one business.
And that's it. Keep it boring.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs.
It is.
Especially, and I found it to be harder as success has, happened because you get way more opportunities.
Yeah, we just need to remember we're not Elon Musk. There's very few of us. I'm one of the people who cannot, but there's very few people who can run big businesses and multiple of them at the same time. But most people are like me. It's hard to do that. It's easier to just do one thing really well. And even if we do that, we still probably will never create a company as big as Elon. And that's okay. Just do one thing really well.
Do you think you'll run the agency for a long, long time?
Yes.
Is the plan to exit?
No.
So you want it to be an agency that goes on beyond you?
Yes.
Very cool. Final question. Is there any words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience? It's mainly agents. Anything that you feel like they need to hear?
Cross-sell. Multiple services. You'll reduce churn. It'll make you guys all more money. Don't just focus on generating more revenue. New sales. Focus on retaining. It'll change your business. If you keep a customer twice as long, not only will your income go up by double, but you'll find that your profitability will go up much more because your cost to acquire a customer is still the same, and a lot of the other fixed costs and variable costs end up going down if you just can percentage wise go down if you keep a customer much longer.
And your biggest hacks: have a full service offer, especially in the SMB market, and have really good account management.
Yes.
Is there anything else to increase LTV? I'm sure there is, but
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I think that's it. You know, I think people are going to do fine, and just keep at it. And I wish everyone the best of luck.
awesome.
You know, this is great what you're doing, and I hope everyone here crushes it in 2024 and makes even more money.
Awesome. Well, Neil, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.